Alright, so welcome back to another video. So now that we're done with the ceiling, we're going to continue on with the framing and the build out on the inside of the van. See, we've got lots of stuff piled up in the garage, and the garage cannot be used as a garage right now because it's a van building shop. I'll show you what we got going on. Nice hot heat coming out of the heater. So we're starting to frame out the back. We're gonna have these little bump out areas right here. This is the wall. It's not screwed in or anything, it's just kind of mocked up. Where all like the inverter, the batteries are gonna be, and solar chargers and stuff like that. This is the area for the fridge and the freezer. Let's see, we've got kind of like the rough outline of the bed. The bed will go all the way back to this pillar here. The mattress will just be kind of notched around this area here. Then there'll be a gap here, which is good. It's also important that way you can reach your door handle if you need to get out the back in an emergency. So you can see how we've insulated these cavities here. Obviously the bump out, we have the silent deadener insulation behind this, and then we have this R3 1/2-inch XPS foam, which will insulate this area. Kind of a mess of wires in here right now. Showed earlier, so we got the plumbing, that's the fresh or city water inlet, or it goes to a T, and then it'll go up to the shower water, and then it'll run down. Today I'm going to be working on building. There's a step thing through. It's a pass through. It'll be used as a step to get into bed. It's where all the wiring and pipes will run. It's kind of like a chase. We're going to keep a nice open basement this time. There'll be lots of storage space. We'll just frame walls right against the water tank and right against the batteries, and there'll be a ton of space to store stuff under the bed. We're also going to be getting all the cabinets installed. There's going to be 10 feet of cabinets. And then we're going to get kind of our island or counter space built with some drawers. And then the water tank's going under here, so there's going to be, that'll just continue, but you'll see how that comes along. And we've got the shower pretty much figured out. Cut out for the vent up there. Now we're working on, we have to add another layer of 1/4-inch ply to bring it flush with this Rec Pro shower pan. Then we're going to be putting a vinyl wall covering on, which you'll see, kind of like the floor, which is waterproof. Okay, so making progress here. Got the outlet for the microwave roughed in. Obviously that just runs down behind the wall, and then the outlet for the refrigerator there roughed in. Again, all that's coming into here. Got this step belt. This is the chase. It's really strong. Little overbuilt, which is good, and we'll cover that with plywood, and then same material as the flooring to finish it off. And then I've got the piece of wood. This is gonna basically support the cabinets all the way down. And we're going about that far. It's gonna be, like I said, 10 feet of cabinets. And that's also where the counter will stop when it's coming this way. So I used PL marine adhesive on this wood to the metal, and then also self-tapping sheet metal screws to get that up there. Once that PL marine dries, I don't think it will ever come off. Now this area right here, I haven't really talked about this much, but this is called boron steel, and you can tell the sound difference. So this back here is just regular steel. This is easy to drill through. This up here, it's a structural component in the van. That stuff is also right here, from basically here to behind here. And then in the back corners, you'll find it. Ford uses that because it's super strong. So obviously over the door here, you need a lot of support because there's this big opening. So this steel is super strong, but a regular drill bit, there's no way you can drill through this. You will not be able to get a self-drilling screw through it, nothing. A lot of people use riv nuts in these holes, which is a good idea. We'll do that to mount our cabinets. But if you do need to drill through it, you can see that I did put screws in. You need a special drill bit. And there'll be a link in the description below to the one I use. They're kind of expensive. They're about $10 each. This is a 1/8. I'd order about 4 of them, honestly, for this job. You will break them. They're super fragile, but they do go through the boron steel. And the key is you must hold it extremely straight. If you turn it at all or try to drill into like a corner of this metal, it'll just snap the bit in half. They're meant to be used on a drill press. Like I said, they're extremely fragile. I'll just give you an example. I'll go ahead and drill another hole here. So I'm through the wood. I'm just gonna hold it really straight. And it went through. So again, you gotta get the special tool bits if you wanna drill that stuff. There's no way around that. So now we're gonna try to get the cabinets up, and we're gonna try to get this shower finished off. So here's the vinyl we're using for the shower walls. I think it'll look really nice. This is actually flooring vinyl, just like you would put on the floor of the RV. We're just gonna put it on the walls instead. And then obviously in the seams and the corners, I'll be using OSI Quad Max sealant to caulk all the seams. So still need to caulk all the seams, but got the shower panels up. I think it turned out pretty good. See, we got the hole there for the custom bath fan. Here's, I'm gonna finish that, some 2-inch PVC pipe. This little screen here. So I basically just slide right in here. Then put a little butyl rubber to where it seals on the edge here against the fan out there. And there you can see there's some around there that will basically seal it to the wall. And I'll probably just put a thin layer of caulking around the screw holes too, just to make sure it seals good. And so this is what it looks like on the outside. Just that little vent. I'll throw some links in the description. I just kind of put this all together. But it'll be nice to have just a little fan. It's just a little PC fan. draws hardly any power, but it'll move that hot steamy air out of the shower since our roof vent fan isn't anywhere close. All right, so here's the fan all finished up. That should work just fine. Just the little details like that make the difference. All right, so I'm preparing to install the cabinets. We kind of cheated a little bit, and instead of making our own, we bought some cabinets, and I'll show you here in a minute what they look like. Kind of neat hack if you don't feel like building your own cabinets. We use basically some kitchen cupboards. Like I said, I'll show you in a minute. But so this bottom board here is kind of going to set the angle correctly so the cabinets are straight, and then so the bottom will screw into this wood here. And then you always have to be thinking about, if you were involved in an accident, stuff has to be reinforced way more than like you would in a house. So we're using rivnuts in the frame or in the metal of the vehicle here, and they will be all the way down, so the cabinets will actually be not just screwed, glued, but they will also be bolted to the steel structure of the van. That way they won't be going anywhere. Because you got to think, if you get into an accident, you know, on the highway, everything that you build back here has the potential to come flying forward at you in the front. So you do have to keep that in mind, and you really do have to overbuild. All right, so here's the cabinet I'm talking about. So you can see it's a 30-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch kitchen cupboard. But what happens if you turn it this way? And now it's a van cabinet. All right, so what we've done is, obviously we have that strip there. Now we've attached a 2x3 to the ceiling that is glued up with polyurethane adhesive and then screwed into the cross ribs in the ceiling. And that's going to give us another way to attach the cabinet to the roof. So it will be screwed along the bottom, screwed along the top, and bolted to the metal here. All right, so now we have it lagged, at least one bolt per cabinet, and we're gonna put, or that's a bolt, then we're gonna lag screw it to the board behind it, and then we also have, right now, just one screw holding it up to the ceiling, but I'm gonna put a washer and do a couple more. The key is, it's not, there's a little bit of a gap, so I don't wanna just run that screw crazy, because then it will pull the cabinet out of place, but it's already very solid. You can see we've cut our holes underneath for the lights. They'll be recessed in there, and then we're going to build a little bit of a false. There's a nice deep channel, so we're just going to put a piece of 1/4-inch plywood over it, and it'll allow the wire to run in between, and it's just for the first two cabinets. All right, so there's what it looks like with the cabinets all up. Like I said, we've got lags in the bottom. You can see the rib nut, 5/16, and then up at the top, screws and washers. Also screwed each cabinet to the next one just to kind of add a little bit more rigidity. There's the cutouts for the electronics, so we're gonna have an outlet here, and this is where a lot of other electrical items will come in. There's gonna be a whole camera system and a DVR and all that, so all that'll be up in here in this area. Same thing for these. Minimum of one screw going, or one bolt going into the metal, but you can see like this one has two. All right, so now we're gonna start working more on the walls and like the bump outs and stuff. You see we got a couple boards put up here. So this is obviously going to be behind the kitchen counter, and this is flush with this. We're going to be doing a shiplap finish on the walls, so we'll just screw directly to the metal, glue and screw, and then work its way down to the countertop right there. We're gonna box this here for the bed area, and then we're also gonna tackle today is getting this wall framed right here, and we're gonna try to figure out this situation here. This is probably the most complicated section of the whole van build. Alright, so we've got this wall mostly framed up. We're trying to decide what we wanted to do up here in the front with the blobs. So we are going to use the blobs. We had to heavily modify since we put the ceiling under it. So here's basically what's left of it. We cut a lot off of the top and then a lot off of the side here. This allows it to fit nicely right up against the ceiling right in here. It'll be able to finish to it good. So we're going to be covering this with a fabric, hopefully that matches the headliner. There's this big recess here, that's where the pin goes. So what I've done is I've put the pin back in, took a little bit of hot glue, and I glued the pin in place. And then I'm going to fill this with expandable foam and let it dry, and then I'll obviously shave it so it's flush with the surface. And I'll fill that little spot right there with expandable foam also. And that little spot, and that spot. That way, when we go to wrap the fabric around it, there's no weird recesses. So hopefully that will allow this to get pushed on one time. And then that one little nub there is intact, which kind of fits in this hole here. If we have to, I'll put some kind of glue behind it if it's like sagging, but I think once the boards are up, everything will kind of be held in place and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's how that works. So now we have to do this side. It's going to be similar. You can see the mess. It was like 50 cuts, just trying to not take too much off and get it just right, but we should be able to pretty much copy the same thing over here since the ceiling is the same. That's the finished look. How the boards tuck under now that the headliner snapped back up. Looks really nice like that. So again, we're going to do the same thing over here, except it's the reverse, and that will allow this little area here to be finished. And as you can see, this is going to be an area of electronics. So what's going to be right here is for the inverter. This will go to the back. This already runs to the back. This is for the inverter, so a screen for that. It's got the battery monitor. Will be a screen for that. Since those light up, I'm having them on this face. That way at night, it doesn't disturb you when you're sleeping if there's a little bit of light coming off of them. Then over here, I'm going to have all of my tank level gauges. So one for the gray tank, one for the freshwater tank. So that'll be this little area here. And I got this outlet hooked up that goes in there. And then I have a lot of work to do here still. But these are the ones I'm using, these cable pass-throughs. So this will allow those wires to just push through there. And this just screws up in the wall there to make that look kind of finished and nice. Then lastly, I had to router just a few slots for this video cable. That's what's going to run from the DVR that's in there to the monitor. It's going to be on the wall here, 19-inch monitor. And then there's also a monitor that will come back here via this composite cable. That way when you're laying in bed, you can flip on and see what's on the cameras. And then I had to router one channel here. This is going to be for the remote for the V-Lit heater. It's going to be mounted on this wall like that once we get it done. All right, so I'm prepping for the one of the countertop drawer assemblies to go in. I'm trying to finish off the door here, and with the transit there's a lot of curves, especially if you get this factory black plastic trim. So I picked up this stuff here, which is really cool. There'll be a link in the description, and it works really good for this. I'm just like carefully applying it. You can see how it looks. It's got double-sided tape on the top and bottom, and I'm actually using it kind of the opposite, whereas the long way goes down here. So that will finish off that very nicely. Can't really just use traditional metal around the curves, so had to come up with something. So I think it turned out good. And then I'm going to use this across the front here to keep stuff from kind of falling down under the floor. And then I'll probably use it across the back door also. All right, so again, I really don't like building cabinets and drawers and stuff, which is why I went with these. So another thing to kind of save some time was the kitchen counter base here. So this, if you go with a standard normal size household kitchen, this thing would be huge, and it would stick way too far into the aisle. So we found when we did our ProMaster, this base here at Lowe's, this is for a vanity in a bathroom. So actually it works out pretty good. The only issue is part of it is plywood, like the front of it here is plywood, but then there's like particle board also. So it does require beefing it up with some plywood for van duty. And I did basically bolted some 2x4s to the floor and then screwed the base to it on the front corner here. Then this will bolt to the van here and here. And there'll be another spot down the floor on the back that it bolts to. And then we're going to extend the counter. We're just going to build it ourselves here because it's going to be basically some doors that open to access the area in here where the hot water heater is and stuff like that. And then get into framing the bump outs. This is the side where heads will be. So you can see how it's going to look. Basically the wall will come down and it cuts in about 4 inches extra on that side there. And we're getting ready to do the same thing over here. It's just going to be a little different because the framing is just get a little more space is on the inside of the metal here versus on top of the metal over there. I mainly did that. It makes it easier, but also the wiring harness, as you can see, tucks, and that's something that's always an issue with the Transit is what do you do with that wiring harness? I think this is kind of the easiest thing right here. Just make space for it. But we'll let you watch us build this side. Alright, so there's what the passenger side looks like. Give us a few inches extra. Obviously driver's side. Stretch out at night. See, we've got all the wires routed through there. Made a couple holes. The wires come down, obviously out of the wall, go into there. And then these are holes for hot and cold water and a drain line right there. So speaking of drain line, so I'm going to be using 1-inch PVC, and it'll basically come out of the sink and we'll go through it's like a trapless camping sink base. Basically it's a one-way valve for the water. It'll come through this pipe. The pipe will gradually slope, come down, it will go through here on a slope, and then it will exit the vehicle through the floor in under the electrical area there. That way it can tie into the gray water tank that the shower is tied into. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could go straight down through the floor, but the problem is you can't go across the gray water tank because the gas tank is all the way up against the frame. So you have to go all the way to the back to go around the gas tank. And the problem with that is then the pipe, you know, in the winter, that's going to freeze solid if you want to do any cold weather camping. That's why I'm putting it inside the van. Some people actually like put it in the floor when they're doing the floor. That's an option. I didn't really like that because if something ever gets clogged or happens to the water line, there's no way for me to get to it. So that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing. Kind of like in a camper, there's kind of like a secret little access to get to everything. Again, right here, we're going to just extend this cabinet. It'll be like a decent sized door, kind of like this. And underneath there'll be storage. There's going to be the hot water heater. There'll be a propane line that runs up. There will be a gas cooktop right here. We went with a electric one in the last van. It worked okay. It was induction, but it just seems like gas is quicker and easier. And if you're off grid and you don't want to use a bunch of power, it's going to work better. So we've got this wall started. Got the heater framed. And we started the shiplap. So we're using, it's real wood. They make it an MDF or wood. It actually really wasn't much more expensive at all to get the wood shiplap versus the MDF. And back here, we've got all the shiplap up. Let's kind of see how it's going to look. And a lot of people would probably put a cabinet here. We're not doing that just because don't need the space right now. We always could add it later. Just like a lot of head space. I don't like van builds where it seems like when you sit up in bed you're going to smash your head into something. So that'll be the side of the head to go on. This is the feet side. And we're still working on the shiplap. Things are a little bit different in the back over here because this little bump out area does not go quite as deep as the other side. Then I'm just finishing up this piece right here. It's kind of like one of the, I'm not gonna say one of the most important pieces, but it's important because there's a lot of angles involved here. Kind of see it's gonna finish off the edge of the cabinets, give them a little bit better look. You see what we did up here? Glued and then tacked this board all the way across, and we're gonna caulk it at the ceiling so you won't see any line. And then I'm actually gonna have RGB LED lighting that sits behind the lip so you won't see it directly. It'll cast up on the ceiling. You can change the colors and the pattern and stuff. It just gives kind of a neat look in the evening when you're in here. The main point of this piece is obviously to finish the end, but also to prevent you from just smashing your head right on the corner of one of these cabinets. You can see it just comes out. And then I'll recess our battery monitor and the inverter system in this panel as well. Kind of ties everything together. Alright, so for the cabinet hardware, you can see how the strut mounts. It's easiest just to get the bottom one screwed in. We put it to the specs that came with the half English instructions, and then up here just kind of held it because we want the cabinets to be held up past to where the handle's touching the ceiling. So you can see this is the pull These, we use these plastic clasps, and they seem to work pretty good. I'll show you. You have to kind of push it, and it's locked in there good, so stuff's not just gonna come flying on your cabinets, and you just pull kind of hard, and then let the strut take it out. You can also use magnets or, you know, a million other things, but we just don't want like pots and pans come flying out when you take the corner. That's the main thing. So it's got, I mean, it's not a crazy hard pull, but it takes a little bit. All right, so we're working on this last wall, a shiplap here. This is where the counter and the kitchen is gonna be, obviously. So we gotta get, it's a lot easier to get these holes cut in for switches and stuff beforehand. So on the top row here, we're gonna have a couple switches. One's gonna be for the under cabinet lights that'll be here. And there's gonna be a RGB LED strip that runs like as accent lighting near the ceiling. That's what those two switches are for. And then on the other side, there's going to be a dimmer. Just another, looks like dual switch. And that runs down, there's gonna be accent lighting that runs along the floor all the way. It's indirect white light, and it'll have a dimmer, like I said, so you can have like a nice, like, you know, night lighting or whatever. So that's what that's for. Then below it, I've got a couple holes cut. So these are for 120 volt electric boxes. This one's just gonna be a regular 120 volt outlet, GFCI outlet. And then this one here is gonna be for the water heater power switch. So you can flip on and off the water heater right here. And then this one here is going to fit a one of the little 12 volt Magnadine USB 12 volt outlets. And then when it has the cover plate on it, these three will basically match. So like I said, it's a lot easier to cut this beforehand. And then we'll get our glue on there and screw it in. Now, so what we're doing here is these stick out just a hair further than this metal on the van wall. You can't really see it, but there's a slight curve to this wall. And then with just being very careful how we cut these boards on the end here, because this is basically going to be the finished surface. I mean, we could always put just a little piece of trim over there if we want, but if you get this cut well enough, you could literally just put a little dab of caulk in these little holes between the boards, and then this is your finished surface, and it looks really good. So once we get this wall done, the wall will be officially done in the whole van. And then over here, the window, we got it framed out. So it's recessed pretty far. Just basically picture framed it, and just need to, you know, put a little caulk in the seams, and that will be ready to be finished. So it's coming along about 3/4 of the way done. A lot of finishing left to do. All right, so here we have a solid piece of acacia. Pretty expensive butcher block, but it really looks good once you get a finish on it. We will be coating it in a satin polyurethane for durability. So my measurements are 69 3/4 by 19. So I'm gonna have to cut just about this much off. So this is a 6-foot section. So it's nice we're able to buy the 6-foot section. It is more economical. So I believe it comes in a 72-inch one. So if you're gonna make another table, like a fold-down table or something, you might just want to buy the longer one. I have some of this left over from our previous van build, so I'll be making the table out of that. So it's going to be 69 3/4 and then 19 inches this way, so I'll have to cut some off there as well. Alright, so just got it kind of test fit. So you gotta remember, nothing is really square in a van. So this wall here curves in towards the door at the last second. So you can kind of see the problem. So what we're gonna do is we'll pull this out and we'll cut a little piece of this to put back there. That way that doesn't look kind of awkward right in that spot there. Doesn't look bad. Then there's going to be some trim that goes like here, like a backsplash type trim. And we have this little issue over here. So there's a gap, and at first I thought it was the way I cut this top with a regular saw. It's not. It's somehow this wall is like just out a little bit towards the back. Alright, so we've pretty much wrapped up the framing and the building out of the interior. In a later video, I'll show the finishing. One of the last videos will be how we finish everything on the interior. You can see we got the cabinets in. We're ready to put the countertop in. It's drying. It looks pretty good. I'll give you a quick shot of that, how that turned out. You know, the sink will drop in, the stove will drop in, everything's just got it plugged in. We just got to make a couple doors for here and here and a drawer face. I did build a quick drawer for this area here on top of the water heater. So it'll be a nice pellet drawer. There's really nothing I could do with this space here because of the water heater. But I wanted to make sure I had a big enough door that if I ever have to take the water heater out, I can get it out through the doorway, even though it won't be fun. You can see we ended up with a whole lot of space right here. I'm really happy with how the step turns out. And even, gotta love the headroom. I'm standing on the step and my head just touches the ceiling. I'm 5'11". Got the fridge, microwave kind of roughed in place here. Really, I didn't plan that. I just knew I needed to get the smallest microwave I could find. So $50 later at Walmart. And definitely couldn't have gone any bigger than that. So I'll have to figure out a way to trim out around that, but still allow airflow to get in behind here, because that's really important. Same thing with the refrigerator. Gotta have airflow. There's airflow that can run down behind it. And obviously anytime, like I said earlier, the refrigerator is running, that fan's on. So you can see we just got a quick coat of paint on real quick, which is kind of taking us into the finishing the interior video, which will be coming up. But just getting some white on the walls, even though it's just the first coat and there's no trim, really makes a big difference. And we're starting to see the finish line, and it feels good. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If there's anything that I used in the video that's helpful, I'll have links below. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them. And please subscribe and like the video, because there'll be plenty more on our van build as we move towards the finish line. So as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.